Throughout history, there have been countless unexplainable stories, events, and moments captured on audio. These horrifying tapes were archived, never to be heard again. Until now. These are the tapes of trepidation. Tape number 10. Stories of Slenderman. They say that monsters only come at night. That light will drive them away. But not all creatures follow this rule. Safety is not certain during the day. He hides on the fringes of your vision. Brief glimpses of the distorted. He slithers and writhes behind your eyes, reaching for you, limbs contorted. Before you know it, your children are taken, and now it's come down to you. His breath is oppressive, his presence acidic. He feels pity is undue. Suddenly trapped in his grasp so tight you struggle to break yourself free. He laughs and gurgles and he screeches with glee. He turns your head for you to see. Your children are crying though their eyes are removed. They collapse still and silent. His arms and legs bend, pulling you closer. The man's eyes dark and violent. He strikes and he cuts, your skin flays open. Your soul too weak to resist. This should not have happened. If only you had listened. Never go in to his forest. I know of an old Romanian fairy tale, highly unpopular even in its earliest iterations. It might be based on a particular event, or perhaps it's an extrapolation from existing Slenderman stories. The translation I'm most familiar with goes a little bit like this. Once upon a time, there were twin girls, Stella and Serena. They were brave little girls and had no fear of the dark, nor of spiders or other crawling things. Where other young ladies and even young boys would cower, Stella and Serena would walk with their heads held high. They were good girls, obedient to their mother and father and to the word of God. They were the best children a mother could ask for. And this was their undoing. One day, Stella and Serena were out with their mother gathering berries from the forest. Their mother bid them stay close to her, and they listened, as they were good children. The day was bright and clear, and even as they walked closer to the center of the forest, the light barely dimmed. It was nearly bright as noon, when they found the tall man. The tall man stood in the clearing, dressed as a nobleman, all in black. Shadows lay over him dark as a cloudy midnight. He had many arms, all long and boneless as snakes, all sharp as swords, and they all writhed like worms on nails. He did not speak, but made his intentions known. Their mother tried not to listen, but she could no more disobey the tall man than she could forget how to breathe. She walked into the clearing, her daughter shortly behind her. "Stella," she said, "take my knife and cut a circle on the ground big enough to lie in." Stella, who was not afraid of the tall man, nor afraid of the quiver in her mother's voice, obeyed what her mother said. "Serena," the mother said, "take the berries and spread them in a circle and crush them underfoot until the juice stains the earth." Though Sonia wondered why her mother asked her to do such a thing, she obeyed because she was a good girl. "Stella," the mother said, "lie in the circle." Stella, though she worried she might stain her clothes, did as her mother asked. "Serena," said the mother, and bid Serena cut her sister open with the knife. Serena could not, would not. "Please," her mother said, "if you don't, it will be so much worse." But Serena could not, and she threw the knife away and ran home crying. She hid under her bed, afraid for the first time in her life. She waited until her father came home from the fields and told him of the terrible things she had found in the woods. Her father comforted her and told her she would be safe. He went to the woods, his axe in hand, and as he commanded, she stayed by the hearth, waiting for his return. After some time, she fell asleep. When she woke, it was to the sound of knocking at her door at the darkest hour of night. "Who's there?" she said. "It is your father," the knocker said. "I don't believe you," said Serena. "It is your sister," the knocker said. "It cannot be," said Serena. "I am your mother," said the knocker, "and I told you it would be worse." And the door, locked tight before her father left, fell open as if it had been left ajar. And her mother stepped in, her sister's head clutched in her one bloody hand, her father's in the other. "Why?" wept Serena. "Because," said her mother, "there is no reward for goodness. There is no respite for faith. There is nothing but cold steel teeth and scourging fire for all of us, and it's coming for you now." And the tall man slid from the fire and clenched Serena in his burning embrace. And that was the end of her. After waking up with a jolt, the girl laid in bed a few seconds longer. Reaching over to switch on her bedside lamp, she tried to remember exactly what had stolen her sweet slumber away. When she couldn't, The brunette swung her legs over the side of the bed and heaved herself up. Checking the time on her phone, she snorted when she saw it was 3 a.m, the witching hour. Knowing that sleep would only evade her, she left her bedroom for the kitchen, a good cup of coffee on her mind. As she passed by her front door, a chill spread like liquid fire down her spine. It's only winter, she told herself, focusing again on the coffee plan. Measuring out scoops, water, and preparing her cup kept her occupied. But as the dark liquid boiled, she had nothing left to keep her mind from wandering off. The chill returned, and she couldn't help but glance behind her to the front door. It stood there, innocently enough, just like always. The deadbolt was still in place, and she could see nothing amiss with it. Turning back to her coffee, she did her best to forget about the feeling. With her cup in hand, she started back towards her bedroom. As she walked by the front door, she decided that a quick glance out of the peephole would calm her restless thoughts. The chill worsened with each step towards the door, and further away from the safety and warmth of her blankets. She pressed her empty hand against the cold metal door and took a deep breath before leading her eye to the peephole. At first, she could only see an inky blackness that somehow seemed to swirl in itself. When she blinked in surprise, the void melted away. She wished it hadn't. In its place, there stood what she could only guess was once a man. The limbs were long and inhumanly awkward, with bulky joints branching off into several arms, not unlike the branches of a tree. The creature was draped in a black suit, somehow making the thing more nightmarish to her. The icing on the proverbial cake, however, was what passed as the thing's hellish face. It was as though her mind blurred the ghastly visage to spare itself further from shock and horror. She shoved herself away from the door with the hand still pressed against it. The scalding mug of coffee fell, the liquid burning her bare leg as she fell backwards and tried to crawl away from the door. She knew, somehow, that her mind hadn't been playing tricks on her. As she craved walk away from the door, she watched his tendrils as black as the void itself sneaked around through the cracks. The girl was trapped between the instinct to flee and the gut feeling to not turn her back to the door. When the door jolted, the urge to flee overcame her and she slipped in the burning liquid as she tried to make it back to her room. She knew deep down that she was trapping herself in a corner, but she had to get away from the door. The girl was halfway down the hallway when she heard the previously locked door creak open. She screamed and slipped into a wall, cracking her chin on it and knocking herself unconscious. After that, there was only blackness. Nicole? A warm male voice snapped the woman out of her trance. As she turned around, she was met by one of her sister's doctors. She nodded, not sure if she should say anything, or even if she could find her voice if she did have something to say. That morning, she had gotten an urgent phone call from the hospital saying that her sister Lindsay was there. Before they had even let her see her sister, the doctors had pulled her off to the side and insisted that they talk to her about what might have happened. Phrases like self-inflicted and assault had been thrown around, and Nicole felt her mind reel. She hadn't fully understood what they had been saying until she saw Lindsay with her own eyes. Her little sister had bandages wrapped around her head, covering both of her ears as well as her eyes. They said it was to keep her now deadened eyes from drying out and to try and keep infection out of the wounds Lindsay had made to her ears. The doctors had guessed that either she or someone else had jammed a pencil into them to keep her off balance or to deafen herself against something. There was the mix of the first and second degree burns on her hands, legs, and feet from what was assumed to be the coffee her neighbors found spilled all over the entry to her apartment. As Nicole walked into her sister's hospital room for the first time, she thought she had spied the silhouette of a man in the window. That, she knew, was impossible. Her sister's room was on the 3rd story of the hospital. It was a tall man wearing a black suit with a blank face. I swear to you, I'm not insane, and I'm no murderer. I'm just a sad sack who failed to heed a simple warning, and my friends paid the price. I had this recorder snuck in so I could speak my truth before. Well, there's no point in getting into that right now. This is the true story of what happened the night my friends and I went searching for Slenderman. In a dark forest outside of town, we set out to prove that the stories were true, not thinking our dumbasses would do just that. Traveling through those blackened woods, we laughed and joked about what we'd find, making light of the legend of the tall man, poking fun at the people who defended this stupid story on message boards. It was all just a big joke to us. It was all just a big joke to us. As we ventured deeper into the forest, the darkness seemed to thicken all around us, and the once singing crickets slowly went silent, along with all of us. Each twig that broke underneath our feet echoed around us in the uncomfortable silence that we found ourselves in. Suddenly, as we approached a clearing, an unnaturally tall figure moved into view from a nearby patch of trees, slowly turning to look at us. This being was dressed in a pitch black suit and was surrounded by so many arms. At least, I think they were arms. They looked more like tendrils branching off in multiple directions. They looked more like tendrils branching off in multiple directions, slithering like snakes. It tilted its head at us, like a dog showing interest. Its face was blank. No expression, no eyes, no smile. But we could feel it looking at us. It made its intentions known without a fucking word. I yelled for us all to run, but my friends just stood there, mesmerized in fear of this horrific creature of myth we never actually thought was real. It was just a story, a creepypasta, some bullshit internet legend to scare the shit out of kids. This wasn't real. The blood that squirted onto my face from it slicing my friend's throat, well, that made it pretty fucking real. The creature was so quick, dashing forward and slicing my friends apart one by one as we all screamed. I'm ashamed to admit, I ran first and was the fastest in our group. I got as far away from that thing as I possibly could, without even a glance back to see if any of my friends had followed me. The sound of their screams of anguish fading with each step I took. I didn't stop running until I was at home. I ran into my room, slammed the door shut, closed the blinds, and threw myself onto my bed. After a few moments had passed, and I caught my breath, the reality of the situation hit me. None of my friends had made it out. All of them were dead. I hadn't even given a second thought to try and help them. I just ran. Like a coward. I didn't leave my room for the rest of the night. And for the majority of the next day. Told my parents I just wasn't feeling well. After a couple of days, my friends were all reported missing. A formal investigation took place. I wanted to tell the truth. Everyone knew we were together the night they all went missing. But what the hell could I say? That fucking Slenderman killed my friends? So, I did my best to keep the truth to myself as I helped with the search. It killed me to have to lie to their parents. It's a regret I still hold deep in my heart, along with the guilt I feel of being the only one left alive. Even if it's not for much longer. It was a couple of days into the investigations when I started seeing Slenderman everywhere I went. Either standing off in the distance, hiding in a bunch of trees, or looking in my window at night. The times I didn't see him nearby, I could feel his presence. I wasn't surprised when they found the mutilated bodies of my friends. They were barely recognizable. Flesh and muscle were cut from the bone, their eyes were removed, and their mouths were trapped in a final horrified scream. It was described as something out of a horror movie. They have no idea how accurate they were about that. Seemingly hours later, I was called in for questioning again, and a search warrant was obtained. They found the clothes I was wearing that night, which still had residual blood on it, I guess, or at least enough DNA to confirm their suspicion that I was indeed with them when they were killed. I didn't get a chance to leave the police station after that. They had all the evidence they needed to put me away. I'll save you the details of my trial. Due to my age, I was tried as an adult and sentenced to no one's surprise, a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Well, I think it was actually a double life sentence, but I wasn't really paying attention. My lawyers tried to plead insanity, but I never wanted to go along with that. My mother wept openly in court, screaming that she didn't know what happened to her child, and that killed me. All the while, Slenderman would watch from the window as if biding his time, allowing me to live in disgrace and constant fear, knowing that he was stalking me. Now here I am. 2 years have passed, and I've never truly known a moment's peace. When I do manage to sleep, my friends' screams come to me in my nightmares. My fellow inmates avoid me at all costs, even the more dangerous ones. They say I'm truly insane, and that I feasted on my friends' eyes and drank their blood. I don't do anything to disprove the rumors. I just want to be left alone for however much time I have left to live with the unbearable weight of guilt I feel, along with the constant dark presence that seems to grow closer with every passing day. I may not have died that day, but my life ended along with my friends. I wish now that I had just perished alongside them. I'd give anything to go back and not run away, and let Slenderman take me instead of this game he's been playing with me. Now inside this cell, I rot, paying for the warning I did not heed. His presence has grown so much stronger. I know he's coming for me. Tonight. I can feel him. He's so close. Can you hear that? His footsteps. He's coming. There's no use in calling for help. I'd only be damning others. I was a coward once, and I won't be again. I'll face him like a man. Listen to me. If you seek him out, you will find him, and he will kill you. Or if you're truly unlucky, he'll stalk you first. He's standing at my cell door, his tendrils slithering around it, his head tilting. The door is swinging open. Oh, God. His blank face is growing into a horrendous smile out of hell itself, as dark eyes are forming. I don't want to look at them, but I can't look away. I won't scream. I can't. No one else will die because of me. I wish I could go back and change my fate. Change all of this. I wish with all my heart I had never heard the stories of the Slenderman. Oh, God. This has been tape number 10, Stories of Slenderman, by the Tapes of Trepidation Horror Narration Podcast. Schlankwald, the first story featured in this episode, was written by an anonymous author and was originally posted on the Creepypasta wiki. Music for this story was provided by Thrill, with a link to their YouTube channel in the description of this episode. The Tall Man, the second story featured in this episode, was written by an anonymous author and was originally posted on the Creepypasta wiki. The Blank Face, the third story featured in this episode, was written by an anonymous author. It was originally posted on the Creepypasta wiki. Music for this episode was provided by ESN Productions, with a link to their YouTube channel in the description of this episode. Additional sound design and effects for this episode were provided by Sam Hudson and EchoSFX.com. Slenderman Stalks, the final story of this episode, was written by TJ Hodder. Narration, production, and sound design for all stories was provided by TJ Hodder. The Slenderman, or the Slenderman, was created by Something Awful forum user Eric Kunson, also known as Victor Surge. The Tapes of Trepidation theme was written by the incredible J.M. Scherf. All logos, banners, and overlays for this podcast are provided by the talented Jason Reese from Jaybird Digital Arts. If you have a story you would like to submit or a question regarding the show, please contact us at Tapes of Trepidation Podcast at gmail.com. All content used on Tapes of Trepidation is either original, used with permission, or is available under a Creative Commons license. All rights reserved unless otherwise stated. This podcast and its content may not be redistributed or rebroadcasted without the express written consent of Tapes of Trepidation and the story's author. Well guys, here we are, 10 episodes. Thank you all so much for the support so far, and there's much more to come. Be sure to follow Tapes of Trepidation on Facebook and Instagram to keep up with everything that goes on with the show. Be sure to also check out our Discord server. We have a lot of fun over there. And if you would like to support the show a little more, consider joining the Patreon. You'll find links to all of these in the description of this podcast through the Tapes of Trepidation linktree. And as always, thank you so much for listening.